The Iliad by Homer. Book 2. You're listening to Classics Made Clear. Classic texts translated with accuracy and accessibility for today's listener. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share these videos with your friends. All the other gods and the chariot-fighting men slept through the whole night. But sweet sleep did not come over Zeus. Instead, he kept turning things over in his heart, thinking about how he might honor Achilles and destroy many Achaeans beside their ships. This plan seemed best to him: to send a deadly dream to Agamemnon, son of Atreus. So he called out and spoke these winged words to the dream. "Go, deadly dream, to the swift ships of the Achaeans. Go into the hut of Agamemnon, son of Atreus, and tell him everything exactly as I command you. Tell him to arm the long-haired Achaeans at once, for now he could take the wide streets of Troy. The immortal gods who live on Olympus are no longer divided in their plans. Hera has bent them all with her pleading, and trouble hangs over the Trojans." He spoke, and the dream listened and went. Swiftly he came to the ships of the Achaeans and reached Agamemnon, son of Atreus. He found him sleeping in his hut, wrapped in deep, immortal sleep. The dream stood over his head, looking like Nestor, son of Neleus, whom Agamemnon honored more than all the elders. Taking Nestor's shape, the divine dream spoke to him. "Son of wise Atreus, tamer of horses, are you sleeping? A man who carries so much responsibility should not sleep all night. One who has a whole army in his care and so many worries. Listen to me quickly. I am a messenger from Zeus, who, though far away, cares greatly for you and pities you. He tells you to arm the long-haired Achaeans at once. Now you could capture the wide streets of Troy. The gods who dwell on Olympus are no longer divided. They have all been persuaded, and great suffering is coming upon the Trojans. So keep this in your heart. Do not let it slip from your mind when sweet sleep leaves you." After speaking, the dream went away and left Agamemnon there, thinking in his heart about things that would not come true. He believed that on that very day he would capture the city of Priam. Foolish man, who did not know what Zeus was really planning. For Zeus still meant to bring pain and groaning upon both Trojans and Danaans in the fierce battles to come. Agamemnon woke from sleep, and the divine voice still rang around him. He sat up straight and put on his soft, fine-woven tunic. Over it, he threw a large cloak. On his shining feet, he fastened beautiful sandals. Over his shoulders, he slung his sword with silver studs. Then he took up the scepter of his fathers, everlasting and undying, and went down along the ships of the bronze-armored Achaeans. Dawn, the goddess, climbed up to high Olympus to bring light to Zeus and the other immortals. Meanwhile, Agamemnon ordered the clear-voiced heralds to call the long-haired Achaeans to assembly. The heralds made their cry, and the men gathered quickly. First, he held a council of the great-hearted elders beside the ship of Nestor, king of Pylos. Calling them together, he shared his careful plan. "Listen to me, my friends. During the immortal night, a divine dream came to me in my sleep. In shape and size, it looked most like noble Nestor. It stood over my head and spoke to me. 'Son of wise Atreus, tamer of horses, are you sleeping? A man who carries so much responsibility should not sleep all night. One who has a whole army in his care and so many worries. Listen to me quickly. I am a messenger from Zeus, who, though far away, cares deeply for you and has pity on you. He tells you to arm the long-haired Achaeans at once. Now you could capture the wide streets of Troy. The immortal gods who live on Olympus are no longer divided in their plans. Hera has persuaded them all, and disaster hangs over the Trojans by the will of Zeus. So keep this in your heart." With that, the dream flew away, and sweet sleep left me. So come, let us see if we can arm the sons of the Achaeans. But first, as is proper, I will test them with words. I will tell them to flee in their well-benched ships. You must stand here and there among them, and hold them back with your commands." After he spoke, he sat down again. Then Nestor rose up, the king of sandy Pylos. With good intentions, he stood and addressed them. "Friends, leaders and rulers of the Argives, if any other Achaean had told us this dream, we would call it a lie and turn away from it. But the man who claims to be the best of the Achaeans has seen it. So come, let us see if we can arm the sons of the Achaeans." When he had spoken, he led the way out of the council. The other kings with scepters stood up and followed, obeying the shepherd of the people. The troops hurried along behind them, like swarms of bees that pour out again and again from a hollow rock, flying in fresh bursts, clustering over the spring flowers, some here, some there, so the many groups of men moved out from the ships and huts along the deep shoreline and marched in order toward the assembly. Rumor, the messenger of Zeus, moved among them, urging them on. And so they gathered. The meeting place shook, and the earth groaned beneath the people as they sat down. There was a great noise. 9 heralds shouted, trying to quiet them so they would stop their shouting and listen to the kings loved by Zeus. At last the people sat down in their places and stopped their clamor. Then powerful Agamemnon stood up, holding the scepter that Hephaestus had made. Hephaestus had given it to Zeus, son of Cronos. Zeus gave it to Hermes, the guide and slayer of Argus. Hermes gave it to Pelops, the horseman. Pelops gave it to Atreus, shepherd of the people. When Atreus died, he left it to Thyestes of the rich flocks, and Thyestes left it to Agamemnon to carry, so he might rule over many islands and all of Argos. Leaning on this scepter, Agamemnon spoke to the Argives. "My friends, heroes, Danaans, servants of Ares, Zeus, son of Cronos, has trapped me in a heavy delusion. He is harsh. Before he promised and nodded in agreement that I would destroy strong-walled Troy and return home. But now he has planned a cruel trick and orders me to go back to Argos in shame, after losing so many of my men. This, it seems, is what pleases mighty Zeus, who has already destroyed the tops of many cities. And he will destroy them again, for his power is the greatest of all. And this will be a shame for men in the future to hear, that such a great and mighty army of Achaeans fought a war in vain against fewer men, and brought it to no end. For if we Achaeans and the Trojans were willing to swear faithful oaths and count our numbers, and the Trojans were counted, those who live in the city, and we Achaeans were divided into groups of 10, and each group chose 1 Trojan to pour wine for them, many of our groups of 10 would still be left without a wine pourer. So much greater, I say, are the sons of the Achaeans than the Trojans who live in the city. But they have many allies from other cities, men who fight with spears, and they hold me back and will not let me sack the well-built city of Ilion, though I long to do it. Now 9 years of mighty Zeus have passed. The timbers of our ships are rotting, and the ropes are falling apart. Far away, our wives and young children sit in our halls and wait for us, while the work for which we came here remains undone. Come then, let us all do as I say. Let us sail away in our ships to our beloved fatherland. We will never take Troy of the wide streets." When he finished speaking, he stirred the hearts of the great crowd who had not been part of the council. The whole assembly was shaken, like the long waves of the sea by Icaria, when the east and south winds rush down from the clouds of Zeus and whip it up. It was like when the west wind sweeps across a deep field of grain, as when the west wind rushes in hard and bends a deep field of grain, sweeping across it and making the stalks bow low. So the whole assembly was shaken. With a loud cry, the men ran toward the ships. Dust rose up beneath their feet as they shouted to one another to grab the ships and drag them down to the shining sea. They cleared out the channels for launching, and their shouting reached up to the sky as they longed for home. They even pulled away the props that held the ships in place. Then the Argives might have gone home against what fate had planned if Hera had not spoken to Athena. "Shame on you, daughter of Zeus, who bears the sacred mantle. Will the Argives really flee home across the wide back of the sea to their dear fatherland? Will they leave Argive Helen as a prize for Priam and the Trojans? Helen, for whose sake so many Achaeans have died in Troy, far from their homeland. Go now, move through the army of the bronze-armored Achaeans. Speak gentle words to each man, and hold him back. Do not let them drag their curved ships down into the salt sea." She spoke, and the grey-eyed goddess Athena obeyed at once. She rushed down from the peaks of Olympus and quickly came to the swift ships of the Achaeans. There she found Odysseus, equal to Zeus in wisdom, standing still. He had not laid a hand on his black, well-benched ship, for grief had reached his heart and spirit. Standing close beside him, grey-eyed Athena spoke. "Son of Laertes, born of Zeus, clever Odysseus, will you really flee home in your ships to your beloved fatherland? Will you leave Argive Helen as a prize for Priam and the Trojans? Helen, for whose sake so many Achaeans have died in Troy, far from their own native land. Go now through the army of the Achaeans and do not hold back. Speak gentle words to each man and draw him back. Do not let them drag their curved ships down into the salt sea." She spoke, and he recognized the voice of the goddess. At once he ran, throwing off his cloak, which Eurybates, the herald from Ithaca who followed him, picked up. He himself went straight to Agamemnon, son of Atreus, and took from him the everlasting scepter of his fathers. With it in hand, he went down along the ships of the bronze-armored Achaeans. Whenever he met a king or a man of rank, he stood beside him and gently held him back with words. "My friend, it does not suit you to be afraid like a coward. Sit down yourself and make the others sit as well. You do not yet clearly know what the son of Atreus intends. Now he is testing us, but soon he will punish the sons of the Achaeans. Did we not all hear what he said in council? May he not grow angry and bring harm upon the Achaeans. The anger of a king supported by Zeus is a serious thing. His honor comes from Zeus, and wise Zeus loves him." But when he saw a common man shouting out, he struck him with the scepter and scolded him. "Sit still and listen to those who are better than you. You are no fighter and no leader, worth nothing in battle or in council. Not all of us Achaeans can be kings here. Rule by many is no good thing. Let there be one ruler, one king, the one to whom the son of clever Kronos has given the scepter and the right to judge, so that he may rule over his people." So he moved through the army, setting it in order, and the men began to turn back toward the assembly once more. They rushed back again from the ships and huts to the assembly, shouting like waves of the loud roaring sea, crashing against a great shore when the surf pounds and the whole sea thunders. The others sat down and kept to their places, but Thersites alone kept shouting on and on. He had many words in his head, but they were wild and out of order. He loved to argue with kings in ways that were foolish and improper, saying whatever he thought would make the Argives laugh. He was the ugliest man who came to Troy. He was bow-legged and lame in one foot. His shoulders were hunched and bent over his chest. His head came to a point, and thin hair grew sparsely on it. Achilles and Odysseus hated him most of all, for he was always insulting them. Now he shouted harsh abuse at brilliant Agamemnon, and the Achaeans were furious with him, angry deep in their hearts. But he kept shouting and scolding Agamemnon, "Son of Atreus, what more do you want now? What are you complaining about? Your huts are full of bronze, and you have many fine women inside. Women we Achaeans give you first whenever we capture a city. Or do you still need more gold, brought from Troy as ransom by some horse-taming Trojan, whose son I or another Achaean captures and brings in? Or do you want some young woman to lie with and keep all for yourself? It is not right for you, as our leader, to bring suffering on the sons of the Achaeans. You weak fools, you shameful creatures, women of Achaea, not men. Let us sail home in our ships and leave this man here in Troy to enjoy his prizes, so he can see whether we are truly helping him or not. And now he has dishonored Achilles, a man far better than he is. He took his prize by force and keeps her for himself. But there is no anger in Achilles' heart. He lets it go. Otherwise, son of Atreus, this would have been your last insult." So Thersites spoke, insulting Agamemnon, shepherd of the people. But noble Odysseus quickly came up beside him. He glared at him and rebuked him with harsh words. "Thersites, reckless talker, even if you are loud in speech, stop. Do not try to stand alone and argue with kings. I say that of all the men who came to Troy, with the sons of Atreus, there is no worse man than you. So you should not raise your voice against princes, throw insults at them, and talk about going home. We do not yet clearly know how this will turn out, whether we sons of the Achaeans will return home well or badly. Yet you sit there mocking Agamemnon, son of Atreus, shepherd of the people, because the Danaan heroes give him many gifts. All you speak is slander. But I will tell you this, and it will surely happen. If I catch you acting like a fool again, as you are now, may my head no longer sit upon my shoulders, and may I no longer be called the father of Telemachus. If I do not seize you, strip off your cloak and tunic that cover your shame, and send you weeping back to the swift ships, beating you out of the assembly with blows that disgrace you." So he spoke, and with the scepter he struck him on the back and shoulders. Thersites doubled over, and a big tear fell from his eye. A bloody welt rose up between his shoulders under the strike of the staff, under the blow of the golden scepter. He sat down again, frightened and in pain, and wiping away his tears, looking helpless. Even though the men felt sorry for him, they laughed at him anyway. And they spoke to one another, each glancing at the man beside him. "Look at that! Odysseus has done countless good things, giving wise advice and leading men in battle. But this may be the best thing he has done among the Argives. He has shut up that loud-mouthed troublemaker. I do not think his proud spirit will push him again to insult kings with mocking words." So the crowd spoke. Then Odysseus, sacker of cities, stood up holding the scepter. Beside him stood grey-eyed Athena, disguised as a herald, urging the people to be silent, so that both the first and the last of the Achaeans might hear his words and consider his counsel. With good intentions toward them all, he spoke. Son of Atreus, my lord, now the Achaeans are trying to make you a shame in the eyes of all mortal men. They are not keeping the promise they made when they left horse-pasturing Argos, to return home only after sacking strong-walled Troy. They cry out to one another like young children or widowed women, longing to go home. And yes, it is hard to wait in sorrow. Even a man who stays away from his wife for 1 month, held back by winter storms and the restless sea, grows impatient beside his ship. But this is now the 9th year that we have stayed here, so I do not blame the Achaeans for their restlessness beside the curved ships. Yet even so, it would be shameful to wait so long and then go home with nothing. So endure, my friends. Stay a little longer until we learn whether Calchas's prophecy is true or not. For I remember this clearly in my heart, and you are all witnesses, all of you whom death has not yet carried away. It was at Aulis, when the ships of the Achaeans were gathering to bring disaster upon Priam and the Trojans. We were standing around a spring, offering complete sacrifices of hundreds of oxen to the immortal gods beneath a beautiful plane tree, where bright water flowed. There a great sign appeared. A snake, terrible to see, with a blood-red back, sent into the light by Zeus himself, slithered out from under the altar and rushed toward the plane tree. Up on the highest branch were young sparrows, little chicks hiding under the leaves, 8 of them, and their mother was the 9th who had given birth to them. The snake devoured them as they chirped pitifully. The mother flew around in grief for her children, but the snake coiled and caught her by the wing. After it had eaten both the chicks and their mother, the god who had shown the sign turned the snake into stone, for the son of clever Kronos made it so. And we stood there, amazed at what had happened. When this fearful wonder sent by the gods appeared during our sacrifice, Calchas at once spoke and explained the meaning. Why are you silent, long-haired Achaeans? Zeus of wise counsel has shown us this great sign, late in coming and late in fulfillment, but its fame will never fade. Just as the snake ate the sparrow and her children, 8 chicks and the mother who was the 9th, so we will fight here for just as many years, and in the 10th year we will take the wide streets of the city. That is what he told us then, and now all of it is coming true. So come, all you well-armored Achaeans, stay here until we capture the great city of Priam. When he finished speaking, the Argives shouted loudly, and the ships around them rang with the roar of the Achaeans as they praised the words of godlike Odysseus. Then Nestor, the Gerenian horseman, spoke among them. Shame on you! You speak in assembly like children, like little ones who care nothing for the work of war. What will become of our agreements and our oaths? Shall we throw our plans and our promises into the fire, the unmixed drink offerings and the right hands we clasped in trust? We argue only with words and can find no solution, even though we have been here so long. Son of Atreus, stand firm as before in your strong resolve. Lead the Argives in fierce battle. Let those 1 or 2 men who plan apart from the rest of the Achaeans go their own way. There will be no use in them until they return to Argos and learn whether Zeus, bearer of the sacred mantle, spoke truth or lies. For I tell you this, on the day we set out in our swift ships, bringing death and destruction to the Trojans, the mighty son of Kronos gave us a sign. He flashed lightning on our right, a good omen. So let no one hurry home before he has shared the bed of a Trojan's wife and taken revenge for Helen's tears and sorrow. But if any man is desperate to return home, let him lay his hands on his black, well-benched ship, so that before the others he may meet death and his fate. But you, my lord, think carefully yourself and listen to advice. The word I speak will not be worthless. Arrange the men by tribes and by clans, Agamemnon, so that clan supports clan and tribe supports tribe. If you do this and the Achaeans obey you, then you will know which leader is weak and which is brave, and which of the men are worthy. They will fight in their own groups, and you will learn whether it is by the will of the gods that you cannot take the city, or because of the cowardice and poor fighting of men." Then powerful Agamemnon answered him, "Old sir, once again you surpass the sons of the Achaeans in counsel. If only, Father Zeus, Athena, and Apollo, I had 10 such counselors among the Achaeans, then the city of Lord Priam would soon fall beneath our hands, captured and destroyed. But Zeus, son of Cronos, who bears the sacred mantle, has given me grief. He drives me into useless quarrels and arguments. Achilles and I fought in bitter words over a girl, and I was the one who began it in anger. If ever we can come to one shared plan, then the Trojans will have no delay in their ruin, not even for a little while. But now, go and eat your meal, so we may prepare for battle. Let each man sharpen his spear and set his shield in order. Let each feed his swift-footed horses well. Let each man inspect his chariot carefully and think on the coming fight, so that all day long we may battle in hateful war. There will be no rest, not even for a short time, until night comes and separates the fury of men. There will be sweat on the strap of a man's shield across his chest, and his hand will grow tired gripping the spear. His horse will sweat too, straining against the well-built chariot. But any man I find hanging back from the fight, lingering beside the curved ships, will not escape the dogs and the birds of prey." So he spoke, and the Argives shouted loudly, like waves crashing against a high cliff when the south wind drives them on, waves that never leave the rocky shore, no matter which winds blow from this side or that. Then the men stood up and scattered toward the ships. Smoke rose from the huts as they lit their fires and prepared their meal. Each man offered a sacrifice to one of the immortal gods, praying to escape death and the fury of battle. Agamemnon, lord of men, sacrificed a fat 5-year-old ox to Zeus, the all-powerful son of Cronos. He called together the chief leaders of all the Achaeans, Nestor first, then Lord Idomeneus, the 2 Ajaxes, and Diomedes, son of Tydeus. 6th came Odysseus, equal to Zeus in wisdom. Menelaus of the great war cry came on his own, for he knew in his heart the burdens his brother carried. They stood in a circle around the ox and took up the barley grains. Then powerful Agamemnon prayed among them, "Zeus, most glorious and greatest, who dwells in the dark clouds of heaven, do not let the sun go down and darkness fall until I have thrown down Priam's palace, burned it with fire, and shattered its gates in blazing flames. Let me tear apart Hector's tunic at his chest with bronze. Let many of his companions fall headlong in the dust, biting the earth." So he prayed. But the son of Cronos did not grant all that he asked. Zeus accepted the sacrifice, yet increased their bitter hardship. When they had finished praying and scattered the barley grains, they lifted the ox's head, cut its throat, and skinned it. They cut out the thigh bones and wrapped them in fat, folding it double, and laid pieces of raw meat on top. They burned these on split, leafless sticks and held the inner organs over the fire. When the thigh pieces were burned and they had tasted the organs, they cut the rest of the meat into small pieces, put them on spits, roasted them carefully, and pulled them off. When they had finished their work and prepared the meal, they feasted, and no man's hunger went without an equal share. After they had satisfied their desire for food and drink, Nestor, the Gerenian horseman, began to speak among them. "Son of Atreus, glorious lord, king of men, Agamemnon, let us not sit here talking any longer. Let us not delay the task the god has placed in our hands. Come now, let the heralds of the bronze-armored Achaeans call the people together by the ships. And let us, as we are gathered here, move through the wide army of the Achaeans, so that we may more quickly stir up the sharp fury of war." He spoke, and Agamemnon, lord of men, obeyed at once. He ordered the clear-voiced heralds to summon the long-haired Achaeans to battle. The heralds made their cry, and the men quickly gathered. Around Agamemnon, the king supported by Zeus hurried through the ranks, setting the men in order. And among them moved grey-eyed Athena, holding the sacred mantle, her priceless, ageless, immortal shield. From the edges of the sacred mantle hung 100 tassels of pure gold, each finely woven, each worth a sacrifice of 100 oxen. With it flashing around her, Athena swept through the army of the Achaeans, urging them forward. She stirred unwearied strength into the heart of each man, to fight and to keep on fighting without rest. Then battle seemed sweeter to them than returning home in their hollow ships to their beloved fatherland. As when a blazing fire devours an immense forest along a mountain ridge, and the light shines far away, so from the shining bronze of the marching warriors a great glare rose, flashing through the air up to the sky. And like the many flocks of winged birds, geese, cranes, or long-necked swans, who in the Asian meadow by the streams of the Castrian waters wheel this way and that, delighting in their wings, then settle with loud cries so that the meadow echoes, so the many tribes poured out from the ships and huts onto the plain of Scamandros. The earth thundered beneath the feet of men and horses. They stood in the flowering meadow of Scamandros, in countless numbers, as many as leaves and flowers appear in their season, like thick swarms of flies that buzz about a shepherd's stall in the springtime, when milk overflows the pails. So many were the long-haired Achaeans, standing in the plain against the Trojans, eager to tear them apart. As goat-herds easily separate wide flocks of goats when they mingle in pasture, so the leaders arranged the ranks here and there for battle. And among them moved powerful Agamemnon, with eyes and head like Zeus who delights in thunder, with the waist of Ares and the chest of Poseidon. As when among a herd a great bull stands out above all the others, conspicuous among the gathered cattle. So that day Zeus made the son of Atreus stand out among many, preeminent among heroes. Now tell me, muses who dwell on Olympus, for you are goddesses, you are present and know all things, but we hear only rumor and know nothing. Who were the leaders and lords of the Danaans? I could not speak the full number, nor name them all, not if I had 10 tongues and 10 mouths, an unbreakable voice, and a heart of bronze within me. Unless the Olympian muses, daughters of Zeus who bears the sacred mantle, should remember for me all who came beneath Ilion. But I will speak of the captains of the ships and the ships themselves. The leaders of the Boeotians were Peneleos and Leitos, Arcesilaos, Prothoenor, and Clonios. Those who lived in Hieria and rocky Aulis, in Schoinos and Skolos, and well-built Eteonos, in Thespia and Graia, and wide-spaced Mycalessos. Those who dwelt around Harma, Elysion, and Erythrae, who held Eleon and Hyle, and Peteon, Ocalea and Medeon, the well-founded city. Copai and Eutrasis and Thisbe rich in doves, who held Coronea and grassy Haliartos, who possessed Plataea and dwelt in Glysa, who held Lower Thebes, the well-built city, and sacred Onchestos, with its bright grove of Poseidon, who held Arna rich in vineyards, and Medea, Nysa the sacred, and farthest Anthedon. From these there sailed 50 ships, and on each ship were 120 sons of the Boeotians. Those who dwelt in Aspledon and Orchomenos of the Minions were led by Ascalaphos and Ialmenos, sons of Ares. Astyoche bore them in the house of Actor, son of Azeus, a modest maiden who went up into her chamber, where mighty Ares lay with her in secret. With them followed 30 hollow ships. The men of Phokis were led by Schedios and Epistrophos, sons of great-hearted Iphitos, son of Naubolos. They held Kyparissos, rocky Pytho, sacred Crisa, Daulis, and Panopeus, those who lived about Hyampolis and Anemorea, those who dwelt beside the divine river Kephisos, and those who held Lilaia by the springs of Kephisos. With them came 40 black ships. They set the ranks of the Phocians in order, and armed themselves on the left wing beside the Boeotians. The Locrians were led by swift Aias, son of Oileus, the lesser Aias, not so great in size as Telamonian Aias, but much smaller. He was slight, wearing a linen breastplate, yet with the spear he surpassed all Hellenes and Achaeans. They lived in Kynos, Opoeis, and Kaliaros, in Bessa and Scarphe, and lovely Augeae, in Tarphe and Thronion, beside the streams of the Boagrios. With him followed 40 black ships of the Locrians, who dwell across from sacred Euboea, and those who held Euboea, the Abantes, fierce in spirit, lived in Chalkis and Eretria, in vine-rich Histiaia, and seafaring Corinthos, and the steep citadel of Dion, those who held Charistos, and those who dwelt in Styra. Their leader was Elephona, scion of Ares, son of Chalcodon, lord of the great-hearted Abantes. With him followed the swift Abantes, their hair long behind, spearmen eager with outstretched ash shafts to tear apart the breastplates on their enemies' chests. With him came 40 black ships. Those who held Athens, the well-built citadel, the people of great-hearted Erechtheus, whom Athena, daughter of Zeus, once nurtured after the grain-giving earth had borne him, and established in Athens in her rich temple. There the sons of the Athenians offer bulls and rams to him, as the years turn in their course. Their leader was Menestheus, son of Peteos. No man born on earth was his equal in arranging horses and shield-bearing warriors in rank. Only Nestor could rival him, for he was older. With him came 50 black ships. Ajax brought 12 ships from Salamis and stationed them where the ranks of the Athenians stood. Those who held Argos and strong-walled Tiryns, Hermione and Asine along the deep gulf, Troezen and Ionae and vine-rich Epidauros, and those who held Aegina and Masus, sons of the Achaeans. Their leader was Diomedes, mighty in the battle-cry, and Sthenelus, beloved son of glorious Capaneus. With them as a third went godlike Euryalus, son of Megisteus, descendant of King Talaios. But over them all commanded Diomedes, strong in the war-shout. With them came 80 black ships, those who held Mycenae, the well-built citadel, rich Corinth, and strong-founded Cleonae, who dwelt in Orneae and lovely Arythyrea, and Sicyon, where Adrestos once ruled as king, who held Hyperesia and steep Gonoessa, who possessed Pellene and lived about Aegion, all along the coast and about broad Helica. Of these 100 ships, powerful Agamemnon, son of Atreus, was lord. With him followed by far the most and the best warriors. He himself put on gleaming bronze armor, glorying in it, since he stood out among all the heroes, the greatest of them, and leader of the largest host. Those who held the hollow valley of Lacedaemon, Pharis and Sparta, and dove-rich Messa, who dwelt in Briseae and lovely Augeae, who held Amyclae and the seaward town of Halos, who possessed Laias and lived about Oitylos. Their leader was his brother, Menelaos of the loud war cry, with 60 ships drawn up apart from the others. He himself moved among his men, trusting in his courage, urging them on to battle. More than anyone, his heart burned to avenge Helen's flight and her grief. Those who lived in Pylos and lovely Arene, and in Thrion by the ford of the Alpheos, and strong-built Api, who dwelt in Kyparissaeus and Amphigenaia, Teleos and Helos and Dorion, where the Muses once met Thamyris the Thracian, and stopped his singing as he came from Oechalia, from Eurytos of Oechalia. For he had boasted that he would win in song, even if the Muses themselves should compete with him, even if the Muses themselves, daughters of Zeus who bears the sacred mantle, were singing against him. But in their anger they struck him blind, and took away his wondrous song, and made him forget his lyre playing. Of those men, the leader was Nestor, the Gerenian horseman, and with him were marshalled 90 hollow ships. Those who held Arcadia beneath the steep peak of Cyllene, beside the tomb of Aipytos, where men fight at close quarters. Those who lived in Pheneos and sheep-rich Orchomenos, in Ripe and Strataea and windy Enispe, who held Tegea and lovely Mantinea, who possessed Stymphalos and dwelt in Parrhasia. Their leader was powerful Agapenor, son of Anchios. With him were 60 ships, and in each ship were many Arcadian men skilled in war. For Agamemnon, lord of men, had himself given them well-benched ships to cross the wine-dark sea, since the work of the sea was no concern of theirs. Those who lived in Bouplasion and shining Elys, as far as Hyrmine and Myrsinos at the farthest edge, and the Olenian rock and Alesion enclosed within. Of these there were 4 leaders, and with each leader 10 swift ships followed, carrying many Epeian warriors. Of 2 tens, Thalpios and Amphimachos were chiefs, sons of Actor, one born of Cateatos, the other of Eurytos. Another 10 were led by strong Diores, son of Amarinceus. The 4th 10 were led by godlike Polyxenos, son of Lord Agasthenes, descendant of Augeas. Those who came from Dulichion and the sacred Echinades Islands, lying across the sea from Elis. Their leader was Magus, equal to Ares in battle, Phyleus' son, whom Phyleus the horseman, dear to Zeus, had fathered. Phyleus, who once left for Dulichion after quarreling with his father. With him came 40 black ships. Odysseus led the great-hearted Cephalenians, those who held Ithaca and leaf-shaking Neriton, who dwelt in Crocylea and rugged Aegylips, who held Zakynthos and lived about Samos, and those who possessed the mainland and the lands across the strait. All these were led by Odysseus, equal to Zeus in council. With him followed 12 ships with red-painted prows. Thoas, son of Andrymon, led the Aetolians, those who lived in Pleuron and Olenos and Pylene, in sea-washed Chalkis and rocky Calydon. For the sons of great-hearted Oeneus were no longer alive, nor was Oeneus himself, and fair-haired Meleagros had died. So the rule of the Aetolians had fallen entirely to Thoas. With him came 40 black ships. Idomeneus, famed with the spear, led the Cretans, those who held Knossos and strong-walled Gortyn, Lyctos and Miletos, and shining Lycastos, Phaistos and Rhytion, well-settled cities, and others who dwelt in Crete of the 100 cities. Over them commanded Idomeneus, famed for the spear, and Meriones, equal to Enyalios, the man-killing war god. With them came 80 black ships. Tlepolemos, son of Heracles, tall and mighty, brought 9 ships from Rhodes with the proud Rhodians. Those who lived across Rhodes divided into 3 groups: Lindos, Ialissos, and shining Cameros. Over them commanded Tlepolemos, famed for the spear, whom Astyochea bore to mighty Heracles. Heracles had brought her from Ephyra by the river Selleis after sacking many cities of strong, god-nurtured warriors. When Tlepolemos grew up in the well-built house, he struck down his father's beloved uncle, old Lycymnios, scion of Ares. At once he built ships and gathered many people, and fled across the sea, for the other sons and grandsons of mighty Heracles threatened him. He came to Rhodes, wandering and suffering hardship. There they settled in 3 divisions by tribes, beloved of Zeus, who rules over gods and men, and the son of Cronos poured rich wealth upon them. Nereus from Syme led 3 well-balanced ships: Nireus, son of Aglaia, and King Charapos. Nireus, the most beautiful man who came beneath Ilion after flawless Achilles. But he was weak in strength, and few men followed him. Those who held Nisseros and Carpathos, and Kassos, and Kos, the city of Eurypylos, and the Calydnian islands. Their leaders were Pheidipos and Antiphos, 2 sons of Thessalos, son of Heracles. With them were marshalled 30 hollow ships. Now those who dwelt in Pelasgian Argos, in Alos and Alope and Trachis, who held Phthia and Hellas of the fair women, who were called Myrmidons and Hellenes and Achaeans, of these and their 50 ships Achilles was lord. But they took no thought now for the harsh roar of battle, for there was no one to lead them into formation. For swift-footed brilliant Achilles lay by his ships, angry over Briseis of the lovely hair, the girl he had taken from Lyrnessus after much hardship, after sacking Lyrnessus and the walls of Thebe, and striking down Mines and Epistrophos, fierce spearmen, sons of Euenos, king and son of Selepios. For her sake he lay grieving, though soon he was destined to rise up again. Those who held Phylae and flowery Pyrasos, the sacred ground of Demeter, and Iton, mother of flocks, Antron by the sea, and grassy Pitaleos. Of these warlike Protesilaus had been leader while he lived. But now the black earth held him fast, and his wife with torn cheeks was left behind in Phylake, and his house stood half-finished. A Dardanian man had killed him as he leapt from his ship, the first of all the Achaeans. Yet they were not without a leader, though they longed for one. Podarchus, scion of Ares, set them in order. Son of Iphicles, rich in flocks, and full brother of high-hearted Protesilaus, though younger in birth. The elder had been the braver man, Protesilaus of the war cry. Still the people did not lack a commander, though they longed for their noble lord. With Podarchus followed 40 black ships. Those who lived in Pherae beside Lake Boibeis, and in Boiba and Glaphyrae, and well-built Iolkos. Over their 11 ships ruled Eumelos, dear son of Admetos, born to him by Alcestis, bright among women, most beautiful of all the daughters of Peleus. Those who dwelt in Methone and Thaumacia, who held Meliboea and rugged Olizon. Of these 7 ships, Philoctetes was leader, skilled in the work of the bow. In each ship, 50 men had taken their places, all well trained in the bow and strong in battle. But he himself lay on an island, suffering cruel pain. On sacred Lemnos, where the sons of the Achaeans had left him, tormented by the evil wound of a deadly snake. There he lay in anguish, yet soon the Argives beside their ships would remember their lord Philoctetes. Still, they were not without a leader, though they longed for one. Medon set them in order, the bastard son of Oileus, whom rain bore to Oileus, sacker of cities. Those who held Tricca and vine-covered Ithome, and Oichalia, the city of Eurytos of Oichalia. Their leaders were the two sons of Asclepios, both good healers, Podalerios and Machaon. With them were marshalled 30 hollow ships, those who held Ormenion and the spring Hypereia, and Asterion and the pale peaks of Titanos. Their leader was Eurypylos, shining son of Euaimon. With him followed 40 black ships, those who held Argisa and lived in Giotona, Ortha, and Elona, and the white city Oluson. Their leader was Polypoetes, strong in battle, son of Peirithous, whose father was immortal Zeus. Glorious Hippodamea bore him to Peirithous on the day he punished the shaggy centaurs and drove them from Pelion and forced them toward the Aethykes. Not alone did he lead, for Leonteus, scion of Ares, was with him. Son of high-hearted Coronos, descendant of Caeneus. With them followed 40 black ships. Gonius from Kyphos led 22 ships. With him followed the Enienes and the Peribians, strong in battle, who made their homes about wintry Dodona, and those who lived by lovely Titaressos, who sends his bright water into Peneos, yet does not mingle with the silver-eddied stream, but flows above it like oil. For it is said to be a branch of the dread water of Styx, river of the great oath. Protheus, son of Tenthredon, led the Magnesians, those who lived about Peneos and leaf-shaking Pelion. Swift Protheus was their leader, and with him followed 40 black ships. These then were the leaders and princes of the Danans. Tell me now, Muse, who among them was the best, of the men, and of the horses that followed the sons of Atreus. The finest horses were those of Eumelus, which he drove, swift as birds, alike in coat and age, their backs level as a line. Apollo of the silver bow had raised them in Pieria, both mares, bearing the terror of Ares. Among the men, Telamonian Ajax was the best, while Achilles remained in anger. For Achilles was far the mightiest of all, and his horses too, which carried the blameless son of Peleus. But he lay beside his curved, sea-going ships, angered at Agamemnon, shepherd of the people, the son of Atreus, and his men by the breakers of the sea took their pleasure in throwing discs and spears and shooting with bows, while their horses stood beside their chariots, cropping lotus and marsh-grown parsley, and the well-made chariots lay covered under their master's care, in the huts, and they, longing for their war-loving leader, wandered here and there through the camp, and did not fight. But the rest marched on, as if all the earth were devoured by fire. The ground groaned beneath them, as when Zeus, who delights in thunder, is angered and lashes the earth about Typhoeus in the land of the Aremoi, where men say the bed of Typhoeus lies. So beneath their feet the earth groaned loudly as they advanced swiftly across the plain. To the Trojans came a messenger, swift-footed Iris, from Zeus, who bears the sacred mantle, bringing a grievous message. They were holding assembly before the doors of Priam, gathered together, young men and old alike. Standing near, swift Iris spoke, shaping her voice like that of Polites, son of Priam, who sat as scout for the Trojans, trusting in the speed of his feet upon the high mound of old Aesiates, watching for the time when the Achaeans would move from their ships. Taking his likeness, Swift Iris spoke. "Old man, dear to you are endless speeches as once in days of peace. But now relentless war has arisen. I have entered many battles among men, yet never have I seen a host so great. They are like leaves or like the sands of the sea as they move across the plain to fight about the city. Hector, to you above all I give this charge. Do as I say. Many allies stand throughout great Priam's city, and many tongues are spoken among the far-scattered peoples. Let each leader give commands to those he rules, and let each set his people in order and lead them." She spoke, and Hector did not fail to recognize the word of the goddess. At once Hector broke up the assembly, and they hurried to their armor. All the gates were thrown open, and the people poured out, foot soldiers and horsemen alike, and a great roar arose. Before the city, apart from it, there stands a steep hill in the plain, open on either side. Men call it Batieia, but the immortal gods call it the tomb of swift-dancing Myrina. There the Trojans and their allies formed their ranks. The Trojans were led by great Hector of the shining helm, son of Priam. With him stood the most and the bravest warriors, armed and eager for battle with the spear. The Dardanians were led by Aeneas, the noble son of Anchises, whom bright Aphrodite bore to Anchises on the slopes of Ida, a goddess lying in love with a mortal man. Nor was Aeneas alone, for with him were the two sons of Antenor, Archilochus and Acamas, both skilled in every kind of fighting. Those who lived in Zelea beneath the lower slopes of Ida, wealthy men who drank the dark water of Aesepos. These Trojans were led by Pandora, the shining son of Lycaon, to whom Apollo himself had given a bow. Those who held Adrasteia and the land of Apaisos, who possessed Pityeia and steep Tereia. These were led by Adrestos and linen-armored Amphios, two sons of Merops of Percote, who above all men knew the art of prophecy. He had tried to keep his sons from going into the battle that destroys men, but they would not obey, for the spirits of black death were driving them on. Those who dwelt about Percote and Practyon, who held Sestos and Abydos and shining Arisbe. These were led by Asios, son of Hyrtacos, a leader of men. Asios, son of Hyrtacos, whom great blazing horses carried from Arisbe by the river Seleaeus. Hippothoos led the tribes of spear-fighting Pelasgians, who dwelt in rich-soiled Larissa. Hippothoos and Pelaios, scion of Ares, were their leaders, two sons of Pelasgian Lethos, son of Teutamos. Acamas and the warrior Peiros led the Thracians, all those whom the strong flowing Hellespont shuts within its bounds. Euphemos was leader of the Ciconian spearmen, son of Troizenos, son of Chaos, a king cherished by the gods. Pyraechmes led the Paeonians with curved bows from Amydon far away, from the wide flowing river Axios. Axios, whose water is said to be the loveliest that spreads over the earth. Pylaemenes of the shaggy heart led the Paphlagonians from the land of the Enetoi, where wild mules are bred. They held Kitoros and dwelt in Sesamos, and around the clear-flowing river Parthenios they had their famed homes, in Cromna and Agialos and lofty Erythinoi. Odios and Epistrophos led the Halizones from distant Alibe, where silver has its birth. Chromis led the Mysians, with Enomos the augur beside him. Yet the reading of birds did not save him from black death, for he fell beneath the hands of swift-footed Iacides in the river, where that hero was slaying Trojans and others. Phorcys and godlike Ascanios led the Phrygians from far-off Ascania, eager to fight in the clash of battle. Mesthles and Antiphos led the Myonians, sons of Talaimenes, whom the Gygaean lake bore. They led the Myonian men, who lived beneath Mount Tmolus. Nastes led the Carians of barbarian speech, those who held Miletus and the thick wooded mountain of Pthyron, and the streams of Myandros and the steep peaks of Mekale. Of these the leaders were Amphimachos and Nastes, the splendid sons of Nomion. Nastes went to war wearing gold, like a girl adorned, foolish man. That gold did not keep bitter destruction from him. He fell beneath the hands of swift-footed Aeacides in the river, and battle-fierce Achilles stripped the gold from him. Sarpedon led the Lycians, and blameless Glaucus beside him, from distant Lycia and the eddying river Xanthos. You're listening to Classics Made Clear, classic texts translated with accuracy and accessibility for today's listener. Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share these videos with your friends.